Every network admin has been there. You're staring at a config file well, it's grown into an absolute monster. And you're just left wondering, how did it get this bad? Today, we're going to tackle a tool that can be your absolute best friend or your worst enemy, the access control list. And this post, this cry for help from a user on a Cisco subreddit, it's just the perfect place to start. It's a feeling a lot of you have probably felt. That moment when a tool that's supposed to give you control just starts creating total chaos. This user, yeah, they'd hit a wall hard. So what does it even look like when things go completely off the rails? Well, it almost always starts with good intentions, right? But then it just spirals into this tangled mess that feels completely impossible to manage. I mean, you can just feel the frustration jumping off the screen. The rules were way too specific. The script to deploy them took minutes just to paste in. The list of ports was, and I quote, huge. What started as a security measure had turned into a daily nightmare. And that's it. That's the breaking point. Okay, so what is this tool that's causing so much grief? Well, at the very heart of the problem is the Access Control List, or ACL. And if we're going to master it, we first have to really get a handle on what it is and, how it's supposed to work. The best way to think about an ACL is like a bouncer for your network. Seriously, it just stands at the door, which in this case is a router interface, and it decides who gets in and who gets turned away, all based on a list of rules it's been given. All right, here's the more textbook definition for you. An ACL is basically just a list of permit or deny rules, read in order. When a packet of data shows up, the router checks it against the list, starting from the very top, and the first rule that it matches, well, that rule decides its fate. Simple as that. And this diagram does a great job of showing how you can put these bouncers in different spots around your network. You could have one at the edge, filtering stuff from the internet, and then others between departments, say, to keep the HR network separate from everyone else. It's all about controlling traffic right where you need it. And don't get me wrong, they are incredibly powerful. This isn't just about security. ACLs can actually make your network faster by blocking junk traffic. They can control exactly who gets to use services like web servers. They can even manage how your routers talk to each other. They do a lot. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does an ACL actually look at an address and know if it's a match? Well, it all comes down to a really clever, if sometimes confusing, bit of binary logic. The big question is this. How do you tell that bouncer to check for just one specific person, or maybe a whole group of people, or even just anyone from a particular company? In network speak, that translates to, how do you match a single computer, a whole group of computers, or even a range of different networks? The secret ingredient for all this is the wildcard mask. Now, this is where it can feel a little backwards. If you're used to subnet masks, you're used to thinking the ones are what's important. Here, it's the total opposite. A 0 means, hey, this part of the address must match exactly. A 1 means, I don't care what this part is, just ignore it. And that's how you can write one rule to match a single device or 1,000 of them. Now, ACLs come in two main flavors, standard and extended. Think of standard ACLs as the basic bouncer. They're simple, they're fast, and they only check where the traffic is coming from. Because they're so simple, you want to put them as close to the destination as possible. Extended ACLs, though, they're the heavy hitters. They check everything: source, destination, protocol, even port numbers. That means you can get super specific, so you put them as close to the source of the traffic as you can to stop it early. Okay, so listen. If you only remember one thing about actually writing ACLs, let it be this: plan, plan, plan. Before you type a single command, you need a strategy. Base your rules on your company's actual security policy, write down in plain English what you're trying to do first, and for the love of all that is holy, test your rules on a lab network before you put them on your live one, please. And this brings us to a really critical point, one that gets us right back to our original Reddit post. Look, ACLs are a fundamental tool, but like our friend on Reddit discovered, they have their limits, and sometimes trying to make them do really complex jobs is just using the wrong tool for the job. This comment right here, it just hits the nail on the head. When your rule list starts to look as complicated and long as the one our user was dealing with, it's probably time to graduate from basic ACLs to a proper, dedicated, stateful firewall. And another user comes in and says the same thing.
maybe a little more bluntly. Trying to do this kind of complex network filtering with just switch ACLs, they call it a practice in insanity. The consensus from the pros is crystal clear. For this level of detail, you really need a firewall. So why is a firewall so much better for this stuff? It really boils down to one word: state. See, ACLs are stateless. They have no memory. They look at every single packet like it's the first time they've ever seen it. A firewall is stateful. It understands conversations. If you go to a website, the firewall knows that and automatically allows the website's data to come back to you. That alone makes your rule set so much simpler, not to mention all the better management tools and visibility you get. Okay, let's wrap this all up. We've seen the problem and all its glory, we've gone through the theory, and we've heard from the experts in the trenches. So what's the final lesson here for our frustrated network admin and really for all of us? And here's the original poster again, coming back with this really important realization. There's no magic wand. There's no silver bullet. Whether the answer is to clean up the existing mess or to put in a whole new firewall, fixing a complex problem is going to be real, substantial work.
So here are the big takeaways. Use ACLs for your basic, simple filtering. They're great at it. But when things get complicated and you need to understand conversations, it's time for a firewall. But you know what's more important than any tool? Your plan. A clear, documented policy is your most powerful weapon. Start broad with your rules and only get super specific where you absolutely have to. Which really brings us to our last question for you to think about. It is really easy to just keep adding rules to a config file. It is much, much harder to build and maintain a coherent strategy. So take a look at your own network. Are you just adding more lines to the file, or are you actually building a defense that's manageable, that's scalable, and that actually makes sense?